The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor at the exact moment 6 masked men kicked down the restaurant's back door. Kim Tae-jin, the most feared Mafia boss in Seoul, didn't even flinch. But the young black waitress refilling his water? She moved like lightning itself. What happened in the next 7 minutes would change both their lives forever. Tuesday nights at Lumiere were always quiet. The upscale French restaurant in Seoul's Gangnam district catered to Korea's elite, those who preferred their luxury whispered rather than shouted. Kira Johnson had been working there for 3 months, grateful for the job that helped fund her graduate studies in international relations. Table 7 needs more water, her manager, Mr. Park, whispered urgently. And for heaven's sake, don't make eye contact. That's Kim Tae-jin. Kira glanced toward the corner booth where a man in an immaculate charcoal suit sat alone, his sharp features illuminated by candlelight. Everything about him screamed danger and power. She'd heard the whispers among the staff. Kim Tae-jin controlled half of Seoul's underground operations. Politicians feared him. Rival gangs avoided him. The police pretended he didn't exist. "I've got it," Kira replied, picking up the crystal water pitcher with steady hands. As she approached his table, Kim Tae-jin's phone buzzed. She noticed his jaw tighten as he read the message. His bodyguard, stationed near the kitchen entrance, shifted uncomfortably. "Your water, sir," Kira said softly, beginning to pour. Kim looked up, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. His were dark, calculating, weighing her presence like a chess master evaluating an unexpected move. Then he nodded, returning to his phone. Kira was turning to leave when she heard it. A subtle click from the kitchen. Then another. Her body recognized the sound before her mind did, muscle memory from a life she'd left behind flooding back instantly. Those were safeties being released from firearms. In the kitchen, Chef Laurent was explaining the evening special to a sous chef when the back door exploded inward. 6 men in black tactical gear and skull masks poured through, weapons drawn. The kitchen staff screamed and scattered. "Nobody move!" the lead attacker shouted in Korean, his voice muffled by the mask. "We're here for Kim Tae-jin. Nobody else has to die tonight." The dining room erupted into pandemonium as the 6 masked men burst through the kitchen doors. Customers screamed, diving under tables. The sommelier dropped an expensive bottle of Bordeaux. Kim's bodyguard reached for his weapon but wasn't fast enough. The lead attacker fired twice. Kim's bodyguard crumpled to the floor, blood spreading across the white marble. "Kim Tae-jin," the attacker roared. "Your debt is due." 4 of the attackers fanned out, weapons trained on the terrified diners. 2 advanced directly toward Kim's table, their intent crystal clear. Kim remained seated, his expression unreadable, hands visible on the table. He was calculating odds, weighing options, preparing for what might be his final moments. Kira stood frozen near the bar, the water pitcher still in her hands. Every instinct screamed at her to hide, to run, to become invisible. That's what civilians did. That's what she'd promised herself she would do. But she wasn't just a waitress. Not really. The memories crashed over her. Fort Benning. The grueling training. Her instructor's voice echoing in her mind about her being one of the best hand-to-hand combatants he'd seen in 20 years. The deployment to Afghanistan. The missions she couldn't talk about. The incident that made her leave it all behind and flee to Korea, hoping distance could erase the nightmares. "Everyone on the ground!" the second attacker yelled, firing a shot into the ceiling. Plaster rained down. "You rich parasites think you're untouchable? Tonight you learn different." Kim slowly raised his hands. "Whatever they're paying you," he said calmly in Korean, "I'll triple it." The lead attacker laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Your money killed my brother. No amount can bring him back." He aimed his weapon directly at Kim's head. Kira's body moved before her brain finished processing the decision. The water pitcher left her hand with precision she'd drilled 10,000 times. It spun through the air, heavy crystal catching the chandelier light, and struck the lead attacker's gun hand with devastating accuracy. The weapon clattered across the floor. Time seemed to slow. Every head turned toward Kira. The lead attacker's eyes widened behind his mask, a mix of shock and rage. Kim Tae-jin's expression shifted from resignation to sharp curiosity. "You little," the attacker started, but Kira was already moving. She'd spent 5 years in the U.S. Army Rangers, one of the few women to make it through the program. She'd trained in Krav Maga, Muay Thai, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Her instructors had called her a natural, someone who understood violence not just as force but as geometry, timing, and will. The second attacker swung his weapon toward her, but Kira was inside his guard before he could fire. She trapped his arm, twisted her hip, and sent him flying over her shoulder. His weapon discharged into the floor as he landed hard, the wind knocked from his lungs. "Get her!" the lead attacker screamed, his voice cracking with fury. 2 more attackers converged on Kira from different angles. The diners pressed themselves against walls, watching in stunned silence. Mr. Park's mouth hung open. Chef Laurent peeked through the kitchen door, unable to believe what he was seeing. The first attacker threw a wild punch. Kira slipped it easily, countering with a palm strike to his throat. He gagged, stumbling backward. The second attacker was smarter, more controlled. He circled, looking for an opening. "You military?" he asked in English, surprising her. "Used to be," Kira replied, breathing steady despite her racing heart. He lunged with a knife she hadn't seen him draw. The blade whistled toward her ribs. Kira twisted, the knife missing by inches, and snapped a kick into his knee. Something crunched. He screamed, dropping. But she'd lost track of the lead attacker. He'd retrieved a backup weapon from his belt and was aiming at Kim again. Kira was too far away, too out of position. She watched in horror as his finger tightened on the trigger. Kim Tae-jin moved faster than seemed possible for a man his size. He dove sideways as the shot rang out, the bullet punching through the leather seat where his head had been a moment before. He rolled behind the table, finally showing fear in his eyes. The lead attacker adjusted his aim, preparing for the killing shot. Kira grabbed a wine bottle from a nearby table and hurled it with everything she had. It struck the attacker's shoulder, throwing off his aim. The shot went wild, shattering the restaurant's front window. "You're dead!" the attacker screamed at Kira, swinging the weapon toward her instead. She had nowhere to go, no cover, no time to dodge. Her military training had prepared her for many things, but not this. Not saving a Mafia boss in a French restaurant in Seoul. The shot never came. Kim had found his bodyguard's dropped weapon. He fired twice from behind the table, and the lead attacker collapsed, his gun skittering away across the blood-slicked marble. The restaurant fell silent except for the moaning of wounded attackers and the sobbing of traumatized diners. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Kira stood in the center of the chaos, her waitress uniform splattered with blood, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. She'd broken her promise to herself. She'd used violence again. And part of her, the part she hated, had felt alive doing it. Kim Tae-jin rose slowly from behind the table, his suit rumpled, a cut above his eyebrow bleeding. He looked at Kira with an expression she couldn't read. Respect? Calculation? Gratitude? "Who are you?" he asked in perfect English. Before Kira could answer, the remaining conscious attackers decided retreat was their only option. They grabbed their wounded and fled through the shattered front window, leaving blood trails and spent shell casings behind. The police arrived 7 minutes later, which was exactly 5 minutes slower than usual for this neighborhood. Kim Tae-jin had that effect on response times. People in power moved at his convenience, not theirs. Kira sat on a bar stool, wrapped in a blanket someone had given her, watching the organized chaos of crime scene investigators and paramedics. Her hands had finally stopped shaking. Mr. Park kept staring at her like she'd grown a second head. The other staff whispered among themselves, shooting her nervous glances. A detective approached Kim first. They spoke in low tones, the detective's body language deferential despite the violence that had occurred. Money and power created their own laws in Seoul, just like everywhere else. Then Kim walked over to Kira. Up close, she noticed details she'd missed before. The slight scar on his left cheek. The expensive cologne that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The way his eyes missed nothing, cataloging her posture, her breathing, the way she held herself. "The police want your statement," he said. "I've arranged for a lawyer to be present if you'd like." "I don't need your lawyer," Kira replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Kim's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "My associates tell me you served in the U.S. Army Rangers. That you left the service under complicated circumstances 3 years ago. That you came to Korea to disappear." Kira's blood ran cold. "You had me investigated in the last 20 minutes? I had you investigated the moment you threw that picture," Kim said. "In my world, Miss Johnson, people who can move like you move are either assets or threats. I needed to know which you are." "I'm a waitress," Kira said flatly. "I just want to be left alone." "You were a waitress," Kim corrected gently. "After tonight, that's no longer possible. The men who attacked me work for the Jade Serpent Triad. They saw what you did. They saw you protect me. In their eyes, you're no longer neutral." Kira felt her stomach drop. She'd spent 3 years building a quiet life. 3 years trying to forget the violence, the missions, the faces of people she'd had to hurt or worse. 3 years pretending she could be normal. "What are you saying?" she asked, though she already knew. "I'm saying you need protection," Kim replied. "And perhaps I need someone with your skills. Someone who isn't part of the traditional structure, who doesn't think like a typical bodyguard." "I'm not a killer for hire," Kira said sharply. "I'm not asking you to kill anyone," Kim said. "I'm asking you to keep me alive." "There's a difference." Detective Cho approached before Kira could respond. He was a tired-looking man in his 50s, the kind who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. Kira spent the next hour recounting the attack, carefully editing out the parts about her military background. Kim's lawyer, who had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, ensured she only answered questions she was comfortable with. When it was finally over and the police began clearing the scene, Kim approached her one final time. "Think about my offer," he said, handing her a business card. "You saved my life tonight. In my world, that creates a debt. I always pay my debts." "I don't want anything from you," Kira said. Kim's expression softened slightly, showing a hint of genuine emotion beneath the armor. "Miss Johnson, whether you want it or not, your life changed tonight. The Jade Serpents will come for you. Not tomorrow, perhaps not next week, but they will come. You embarrassed them, made them look weak. That's not something they forgive." He paused at the door, turning back. "When they do come, you'll have a choice. Face them alone, or let me help you. I hope you'll choose wisely." Then he was gone, swept away by his remaining security personnel, leaving Kira alone in the ruined restaurant with her thoughts and fears. Kira didn't sleep that night. She sat in her tiny studio apartment in Itaewon, staring at Kim Tae-jin's business card, her mind racing through scenarios and possibilities. She'd left the army to escape violence, to prove to herself she could be more than a weapon. She'd chosen Korea partly because it was far from home, partly because she'd fallen in love with the culture during a brief assignment years ago. She'd imagined teaching English, maybe pursuing her doctorate, living a quiet academic life. But Kim was right. She'd seen it in the eyes of the Jade Serpent attackers before they fled. They'd marked her face, memorized it. In protecting Kim, she'd made herself a target. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Miss Johnson. The voice was female, professional, speaking English with a British accent. My name is Yoon Ji-woo. I work for Mr. Kim. He asked me to inform you that we've detected surveillance activity near your apartment building. The Jade Serpents are watching you. Kira's blood chilled. She moved to the window, careful to stay hidden by the curtain, and scanned the street below. A black sedan parked across the street, 2 men inside. They weren't even trying to hide. We can have a security team at your location in 4 minutes, Ji-woo continued. Or Mr. Kim has prepared a safe house in Gangnam. Your choice. Kira's jaw tightened. Tell Mr. Kim I'll meet him tomorrow to discuss terms. But I'm not joining his organization. This is temporary until the Jade Serpent situation is resolved. Of course, Miss Johnson, Ji-woo said, her tone suggesting she'd heard similar claims before. A car will pick you up in 10 minutes. Pack essentials only. The line went dead. Kira stared at her reflection in the darkened window. The woman looking back at her wasn't the waitress who'd started her shift 12 hours ago. That woman was gone, maybe forever. In her place stood someone harder, someone who'd been forced to remember what she was capable of. She grabbed her go-bag, the one she'd kept packed out of old military habit, and waited. Kim Tae-jin's safe house turned out to be a penthouse in one of Gangnam's most exclusive buildings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered stunning views of Seoul's glittering skyline. The furniture was minimalist but clearly expensive. Everything about the space screamed power and money. Kim was waiting in the living room, now wearing casual clothes that probably cost more than Kira's entire wardrobe. He was reading something on a tablet, a glass of whiskey at his elbow. Thank you for coming, he said, setting the tablet aside. Please, sit. Would you like something to drink? Water's fine, Kira said, staying standing. Let's be clear about something. I'm not your employee. I'm not joining your organization. We figure out the Jade Serpent problem. Then I disappear. Understood. Kim studied her for a long moment, then smiled genuinely for the first time. You know, Miss Johnson, most people speak to me with fear or false respect. It's refreshing to meet someone who simply says what they think. He poured her water from an expensive bottle, then continued. The Jade Serpents won't give up easily. Their leader, a man called Dragon, doesn't tolerate disrespect. What happened tonight will demand a response. So what's your plan? Kira asked. Normally, I would respond with overwhelming force, Kim said. Show them that attacking me has consequences. But there's a complication. Dragon's daughter, May, is actually innocent in all this. She's been trying to pull her father's organization away from the most violent activities. If I go to war with them, she'll be caught in the crossfire. Kira was surprised by the concern in his voice. You care about her? May and I grew up together, Kim said quietly. Before our families became enemies. She's one of the few good people trapped in this world. He stood, walking to the window. So instead of war, I'm proposing something more surgical. The men who attacked me tonight were a rogue faction within the Jade Serpents, acting without Dragon's full approval. If we can prove that, expose them, it gives Dragon political cover to eliminate them himself. And how do you plan to do that? Kira asked. Kim turned back to her, and his expression was pure calculation. The man who led tonight's attack, the one I shot, survived. He's in a hospital under police guard. If we can get him to talk, get evidence of who really ordered the hit, we can end this without all-out war. You want me to interrogate a wounded man in a hospital? Kira said incredulously. I want you to protect me while my people handle the delicate work, Kim corrected. But yes, we'll need to visit him. And there will likely be another attempt on my life before this is over. The rogue faction will want to silence him before he can talk. Kira shook her head. This is insane. I should just leave Korea entirely. You could, Kim agreed. But they'll follow you. The Jade Serpents have operations in 11 countries. You saved my life, Miss Johnson. That makes you valuable as leverage against me. They'll never stop looking. He walked closer, his expression earnest. Help me end this properly. Once it's done, I give you my word, you'll be free to return to your quiet life. I'll even ensure the Jade Serpents formally declare you off-limits. But we have to do this together. Maya wanted to say no, wanted to walk out and take her chances. But the soldier in her knew Kim was right. Running would only delay the inevitable. Better to face the threat head-on, end it decisively, than rebuild her life. Fine, she said. But we do this my way. No unnecessary violence. No civilian casualties. And when it's done, you never contact me again. Kim extended his hand. Agreed. They shook, and Kira felt like she'd just made a deal with the devil. But sometimes the devil you know is better than the unknown terrors waiting in the shadows. St. Mary's Hospital at 3 a.m. was a study in institutional quiet. Nurses moved through fluorescent-lit corridors with practiced efficiency. Machines beeped their steady rhythms. The wounded attacker, identified as Park Min-ho, was on the 7th floor under police guard. Kira and Kim approached through the parking garage, accompanied by 2 of Kim's most trusted operatives. Ji-woo, the woman who'd called Kira earlier, and a man introduced only as Bear, whose nickname matched his physique. The guard changes shifts at 3:30, Ji-woo whispered, checking her watch. We have a 10-minute window where the new guard will be someone on our payroll. What about cameras? Kira asked. Handled, Bear rumbled in a surprisingly soft voice. Loop starts at 3:20. We'll be ghosts. They moved through the hospital with practiced efficiency. Ji-woo's access cards opened service elevators. Bear's intimidating presence ensured the few nurses they passed suddenly remembered urgent tasks elsewhere. Kira found herself settling into old patterns, her mind automatically mapping exits and threats, calculating response times and attack angles. She'd missed this, she realized with discomfort. The clarity of purpose. The sharp focus of danger. The 7th floor was nearly empty. The guard outside Park's room looked up as they approached, then nodded slightly at Kim and stepped aside. Inside, Park Min-ho lay connected to various monitors, his left shoulder heavily bandaged where Kim's bullet had struck him. His eyes widened as they entered, fear replacing pain as his dominant expression. No, he croaked. No, please. I don't. Relax, Kim said, pulling up a chair beside the bed. His voice was almost gentle. I'm not here to kill you, Park. I'm here to save your life. Park's laugh was bitter. Save me? You shot me. Yes, after you tried to kill me, Kim pointed out reasonably. But that's past. Let's talk about your future. Or rather, your lack of one if you don't cooperate. Kira stood by the door, watching, learning. Kim's presence was fascinating. He radiated controlled menace, but his words were calm, almost conversational. The people who sent you tonight, they're cutting loose ends, Kim continued. Ji-woo, show him the photos. Ji-woo produced a tablet, displaying surveillance images. Your partner from tonight, Young-woo-jin, found dead in his apartment 2 hours ago. Single shot to the head. Professional execution. Park's face went pale. No. Woo-jin wouldn't. They wouldn't. They would and they did, Kim said. You're next, Park. The faction that hired you can't afford to let you talk. But I can protect you. In exchange, I need names. Who really ordered the hit? Who's running the rogue operation within the Jade Serpents? Park's eyes darted between them, fear and calculation warring. If I talk, Dragon will kill my family. If you don't talk, your family dies anyway, Kim said bluntly. The faction will eliminate anyone connected to you to prevent information from leaking. But I can get them into protective custody. I can get you immunity. I can give you a future, Park. All you have to do is tell me who gave the order. The machines beeped steadily. Somewhere down the hall, a patient called for a nurse. Park closed his eyes, tears leaking from the corners. It was Razor, he finally whispered. Dragon's nephew. He's been trying to take control of the Jade Serpents for months. He thought killing you would spark a war, make Dragon look weak for not responding properly. Then he could step in as the strong leader. Kim and Ji-woo exchanged glances. Kira saw something pass between them, a shared understanding she wasn't part of. Razor, Kim said softly. That makes sense. He's always been ambitious, reckless. He stood, looking down at Park. Thank you. You just saved your life and your family's lives. What happens now? Park asked. Now Ji-woo gets you into witness protection, Kim said. You'll testify about Razor's unauthorized operation. Dragon will have the political cover to eliminate his nephew without looking weak. And you'll disappear with a new identity in a place where no one will ever find you. He paused at the door. Or you can refuse. Take your chances with Razor's cleanup crew. Your choice. Park didn't hesitate. I'll testify. As they left the hospital, Kira felt a strange mix of emotions. Kim had just orchestrated a solution that would end the conflict without massive bloodshed. It was ruthless but efficient, brutal but measured. Not what she'd expected from a Mafia boss. That was impressive, she admitted in the car. Kim shrugged. Violence is easy, Miss Johnson. Cheap. Anyone can pull a trigger. But finding solutions that serve everyone's interests? That takes real skill. Razor still dies, though, Kira pointed out. Razor chose his path, Kim replied. He knew the rules when he broke them. Sometimes the only language certain people understand is the one they speak themselves. Dragon summoned Kim to a meeting 3 days later. The location was neutral ground, a tea house in Insadong that catered to the city's underworld elite. Kira insisted on going with him despite his protests. This is my world, Kim had argued. It's not safe for outsiders. Which is exactly why you need me, Kira countered. I'm not bound by your rules. I don't care about honor or tradition. If someone tries to kill you, I'll stop them. Period. So they went together, Kim in another impeccable suit, Kira in dark tactical clothing that allowed freedom of movement. Ji-woo and Bear provided external security, monitoring from vehicles outside. The tea house was beautiful, all wooden beams and paper screens, traditional Korean aesthetics wrapped around deadly modern politics. Dragon sat in the private back room, a man in his 60s with silver hair and eyes like frozen lakes. 3 bodyguards stood behind him, professionals who evaluated Kira with interested respect. Kim Tae-jin, Dragon said in Korean, which Kira understood well enough after 3 years in country. You requested this meeting. Speak. Kim bowed respectfully, a gesture between equals. Honorable Dragon, we have a mutual problem. Your nephew, Razor, has been operating without your authority. He hired freelance soldiers to attack me, hoping to start a war between our organizations. Dragon's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those cold eyes. That's quite an accusation. It's not an accusation, Kim said calmly. It's a fact. I have testimony from Park Min-ho, one of the attackers. I have financial records showing payments from Razor's accounts. I have surveillance footage of Razor meeting with the assault team days before the attack. He placed a tablet on the table between them. Everything is here. I'm not here to threaten you or demand recompense. I'm here because I believe you didn't authorize this action, and I want to give you the chance to address it internally before it escalates. Dragon slowly picked up the tablet, scrolling through the evidence. His face remained impassive, but Kira noticed his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Several minutes passed in tense silence. And what do you want in exchange for this evidence? Dragon finally asked. Nothing, Kim said, surprising even Kira. Keep it. Use it however you see fit. All I want is assurance that the Jade Serpents and I maintain our current détente. No retaliation, no escalation. Business continues as usual. Dragon studied Kim for a long moment. You could have used this to destroy my organization. Created a civil war within the Jade Serpents. I could have, Kim agreed. But then we both lose. Your organization fractures, mine spends resources fighting you instead of making money, and civilians get caught in the crossfire. Including May. At the mention of his daughter's name, Dragon's expression finally shifted. You still care about her. She's a good person, Kim said simply. The world needs more people like her, not fewer. Dragon set down the tablet. Razor will be dealt with. You have my word. And Miss Johnson? Kim gestured to Kira. She was caught up in this through no fault of her own. I want your formal declaration that she's off limits. No retaliation, no harassment, no threats. She returns to her normal life completely untouched. Dragon looked at Kira for the first time, really looked at her. She met his gaze steadily, refusing to show fear or deference. The American waitress who took down 4 of my men, Dragon said. I've heard the stories. They say you moved like a ghost, fought like a demon. I defended myself, Kira said in Korean, her accent decent if not perfect. I wanted no part of this world. I still don't. Dragon's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. Yet here you stand in the heart of it. He turned back to Kim. Very well. The American is untouchable. I'll make it known throughout all Jade Serpent operations globally. Anyone who harms her answers to me personally. Thank you, Kim said, bowing again. As they stood to leave, Dragon spoke once more. Kim Tae-jin, you could have been a great legitimate businessman. You have the mind for it. Perhaps in another life, Kim replied. In this one, we work with the cards we're dealt. Outside, in the car heading back to Gangnam, Kira finally let herself relax. It was over. Actually over. Thank you, she said quietly. Kim looked at her, surprise showing on his usually controlled face. For what? For making that deal, Kira said. You could have asked Dragon for money, territory, anything. Instead you asked for my safety. I owe you my life, Kim said. That debt needed to be settled properly. They drove in silence for a while, Seoul's nighttime lights streaming past the windows. What will you do now? Kim asked. Kira considered the question. I'm not sure. Maybe not waitressing anymore. Maybe something where I can use my skills for good instead of just survival. If you ever need anything, Kim said, pulling out a new business card, call me. No strings, no obligations. Just call me. Kira took the card, knowing she probably never would but appreciating the gesture. Try not to get attacked again. Kim laughed, a genuine sound she'd never heard from him before. I'll do my best. 6 months later, Kira stood in front of a new class of students at Seoul National University. She'd been hired as a lecturer in conflict resolution and international security studies, her unique background and combat experience making her an attractive candidate once she'd finally put it on her resume. The lecture hall was full of bright young faces, Korea's future leaders eager to learn about navigating the complex world of global security. Conflict resolution isn't about who's stronger, she told her students. It's about finding solutions where everyone gets something they need. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting. It's choosing not to. After class, as students filed out asking questions and debating points, Kira's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, but she recognized the style. Saw your picture in the university newsletter. Professor Kira Johnson. It suits you. Congratulations. She smiled, deleted the message, and turned her attention back to her students. Her old life was behind her now. The violence, the fear, the adrenaline, all of it packed away in memory where it belonged. But sometimes, late at night, she'd think about that Tuesday evening at Lumiere. How one moment of action had changed everything. How sometimes the person you save isn't the one you expect. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Ji-woo, Kim's assistant, with a simple message, Razor was found dead this morning. Official cause, suicide. Dragon sends his regards. Kira stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it too. That world continued to turn, its brutal logic playing out in shadows and silence. But she was no longer part of it. She'd saved a life, survived an attempt on her own, and emerged on the other side into something better. Sometimes that was all you could ask for. The next morning, Kira started her day with coffee at a small cafe near campus. The barista knew her order by heart now. Other professors nodded in greeting. Students waved as they passed. It was normal, peaceful, exactly what she'd come to Korea seeking. But she still sat with her back to the wall, where she could see both exits. Old habits died hard. A woman approached her table, professional attire, kind face, carrying a large envelope. Professor Johnson? I'm Dr. Lee from the International Peace Foundation. Your department chair gave me your contact. We're starting a new program training peacekeepers and security personnel in nonviolent conflict resolution. We'd love to have you as a consultant. Kira took the envelope, scanning the materials inside. The program was legitimate, well-funded, focused on teaching soldiers and police officers to be more than just weapons. It was exactly the kind of work she'd dreamed about. I'd be honored, she said. Dr. Lee smiled. Wonderful. Oh, and I should mention, the program received a substantial anonymous donation last week. Enough to fund operations for the next 5 years. The donor specified they wanted to support work that prevents violence rather than perpetuates it. Kira didn't need to ask who the donor was. She could imagine Kim reading about the program, recognizing its value, seeing a way to perhaps balance some cosmic scale. Maybe people could change. Maybe monsters could make choices that helped create something better. Maybe the world was more complicated than simple categories of good and evil. Or maybe she was overthinking it, seeing depth where there was only calculation. Either way, she had work to do. Students to teach. Programs to develop. A life to build that was about more than just survival. As Dr. Lee left, Kira's phone buzzed one final time. The message was from her mother in Chicago, saying she'd be visiting Seoul next month and couldn't wait to see her daughter's new life. Kira smiled, typing a response. She'd introduce her mother to the city she'd come to love, the university where she was building a career, the peaceful existence she'd carved out of chaos and violence. She wouldn't mention the Mafia boss she'd saved, or the gang war she'd helped prevent, or the skills she'd used that violent night. Some stories were better left untold. But as she sipped her coffee and watched the morning sun illuminate Seoul's skyline, Kira felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Not just safety, but purpose. Not just survival, but meaning. She'd walked through fire and emerged transformed, no longer running from her past but integrating it into something new. The soldier and the scholar, the fighter and the peacemaker, finally reconciled into one person. Her journey from that shattered restaurant to this quiet cafe had taught her the most important lesson of all. Sometimes saving others is how you save yourself. And sometimes the people we're meant to help find us in the most unexpected moments, changing our lives in ways we never could have imagined. If you've made it this far, you've witnessed an incredible journey of transformation and survival. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to see more amazing stories like this one. Drop a comment below telling us what you thought about Kira's journey. Would you have made the same choices she did? And if this story kept you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button to help others discover it too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.